People from all around the world have life-threatening conditions that require emergency medication to prevent the chances of death. Out of all of the kids in the US, it is estimated that up to 43% of them have to take medications to treat health issues. Yet, not all schools allow kids to carry the much needed medication with them throughout the day. I was diagnosed with asthma when I was in the fourth grade. I didn't even know what that was until that day. I was prescribed an albuterol inhaler that I needed to have with me at all times. Luckily for me, my school allowed me to carry it with me, but lots of other schools don't. What would happen if I wasn't able to get to my inhaler that day I had an attack? Who would be at fault? And would they realize that they need to let kids carry their medications? So why don't schools allow kids to carry their medications? Well, sometimes the kids aren't seen as mature enough to handle their medications, or they aren't seen as able to identify when they need to use it. Sometimes the schools are scared that if the student does know when they need to use their medication, they may accidentally overuse it, creating bad habits and doing more harm than good. And according to Healthy Children, by the school administering medication, it keeps the amount of medication remaining under control and prevents the students from using expired medication or forgetting to refill it. While these all seem like they're terrible outcomes, how the school allows kids to self-carry will prevent this from happening, as we'll talk about later. Allowing kids to bring their medications with them allows the school to avoid poor outcomes. If a student isn't allowed to carry their inhaler with them, what would happen if they had an away event for school? Since it is for school, the plan of them not being able to carry their medication would still persist. So how would they get it? I really tried researching this question, but I couldn't find anything. So I decided to go straight to the source, a school nurse. During an interview with a school nurse at Umatilla High School, she said, "When I first took over this position, the school was like that. All medications had to be stored in the office. Even then, I knew that it was unsafe, so I changed it." About the away trip question, I'm not too sure what they did before, but I would imagine that a parent would have to bring it for the kid, or they would carry it without permission. In some cases, if the medication is truly needed, then the school might adopt a policy to allow the designated school employee to carry and administer the medication for the student. With my expertise with asthma, I think it'd be much easier and more practical to allow kids to just carry their medication with them to these events. Another point, if the student is having an emergency, like in the case of an asthma attack, it is very dangerous to have a student report to the office to get care, especially if their medication takes time to kick in. By the time they walk to the office, they may be out of time. The schools that do allow kids to carry their medications are trying to teach them how to manage it, which they will need likely for their entire lives. So by not allowing them to carry, they're taking away the opportunity for the student to learn how to manage their condition under supervision. While kids should be able to carry medications no matter what, there are a few exceptions. For example, young kids, about second grade and younger in most circumstances, should not be allowed to carry their own medication. These kids are still learning how to count past 20, so they should not be responsible for carrying life-saving medication. For example, I have many young cousins, and I cannot imagine that allowing them to carry something like an EpiPen would work well. Once they reach 3rd to 4th grade, then they should be evaluated to see if they're responsible enough to handle it with supervision. As said by the National Library of Medicine, readiness to self-carry should be assessed by the child's healthcare provider. The importance of a collaborative decision between the school nurse, the provider, and the patient's family about the appropriateness of self-carrying and self-administrating for an individual student cannot be overstated. This fact alone, that the kids are only allowed to carry if they are seen as ready, shows us there is nothing to worry about with kids self-carrying, as they are responsible to do it without issues, obviously. However, in some cases with students with special needs, they shouldn't have to carry their own medication, as they may not know how to use it or what it even is. The special needs teacher will also be with them 24/7 and should normally be the one to provide medications. Should students carry medication? Pros and cons. Let's start with the cons. Kids may forget to bring medication or lose it, causing issues. Kids may not remember to get refills, leading to them not having the medication. And they may improperly use medication, resulting in injury. However, if the kid is shown to be responsible, which they need to be in order to carry, they wouldn't have these issues and everything should be fine. Now the pros. It teaches kids skills they will need for the rest of their lives, keeps medication at arm's reach in case of an emergency, and alleviates the issue of how to provide medication on away trips. Overall, letting kids who are responsible enough carry and administer their medications is the best course of action for both the school and the kids. There isn't a downside to it besides the kids making mistakes and learning about the responsibility of the medication. The school nurse is also required to check in with the students about every year, so the kids will always have somewhere to go if they have any questions. If the kid is deemed irresponsible and isn't allowed to carry the medication, then they will get to learn it from the sidelines. How and when to use medication, slowly being able to learn how to self-carry. Therefore, allowing kids to self-carry their medications will allow them to become more responsible and teach them how to treat their condition properly. After writing the speech, I was left with the understanding that some viewers may not know the system as well as I do, so I came up with these questions to try to explain some things that may be confusing for others. If kids carry their medication, what happens if they lose it? Well, as you can see with my inhaler, all prescription medications that are from the school must have a sticker with prescription information like name, address, how much to take, and when. It even has your prescription number, so you can call the pharmacy and they can tell you exactly who it is and you can ship it back to the owner. All of this is needed in order for it to work in the school district. And according to the school policy, if the school is not at all at fault, the kid is to lose it. The kid will not be punished, but the parents would probably be very upset. Another question is, do the teachers know about the kids' conditions, and are they required to know about what to do in an emergency? In the interview with the school nurse, we did talk a bit about that. Before the school year starts, the school nurse must inform all of the teachers about the conditions of the kids and if they can self-medicate. The school nurse is also required to educate the teachers as to how they are to react in an emergency and what is considered an emergency in the kids' condition. If the school does not allow kids to have their medication, when the teachers will have to know about their medications. Well, they'll still need to know about them. If the emergency gets out of hand without medication, then the teacher must know how to react, how to call the office, and what the medications are called so the office can bring them. In some cases, the teacher may even be required to understand when it's not a huge issue or when they need to call 911. How involved are parents in the treatment plan making? When in the process of school nurse making the treatment plans, they will be required to have a conversation with the parents of the child about anything the school nurse may not already know. In this conversation, the school nurse would ask the parents if they'd like to allow the kids to carry their medication with them. If the school doesn't allow that, then the nurse would instead ask about administering medication, like at what times and what scenarios would they need to give medication and what the dose of it. The school nurse may also ask more questions about the last time they saw their doctor, how the kid's condition is, if they have any concerns, and anything else the school may need to provide to keep the student as safe as possible. Did I ever feel like I shouldn't be carrying my medication with me in the 4th grade? To be honest, I didn't truly understand what asthma was at that age. At the time, I was a 3-sport athlete who, after her events, breathed kind of weird. I thought that was normal for everybody though, because I had that my entire life. Once I started to use my inhaler, I realized how well it allowed me to breathe. Once I realized that using my inhaler before exercise could change so much about my everyday life, I loved that I could bring it everywhere. It is what allowed me to run and play like all the other kids. Once it kicked into me that the albuterol was like my superpower, I don't think I ever set it down for like a week. Looking back on the memories, I believe that allowing me to carry my inhaler and giving me the responsibility to do everything taught myself so much about my limits. I wouldn't change anything about my journey. Now, as a high school student still doing 3 sports, I realized how important it was I learned how to self-carry. My fall sport is cross country, and whenever I mention that to basically anyone, they're always so surprised to hear that. The amount of people who ask, but how? You have asthma, so you can't run without being able to breathe, right? Is crazy. And most of those people have asthma. It is obvious that they weren't allowed the freedom to learn, or it seems like they weren't even taught how to handle their asthma. And when I try to get people to join the team, so many say, I can't, I have asthma. And when I ask further, so many people play sports and they use their inhaler normally, but they still can't run. So, no, I don't think I shouldn't have carried my inhaler in the 4th grade. By carrying and using, I have taught myself that there is no limits to what I want to achieve and do. As long as I have my inhaler, there is no stopping me. By self-carrying, I know that I can't blame my asthma for everything like the other kids who greatly limit their lives because they're afraid of their condition and don't know how to properly manage it. If there was an emergency but there wasn't medication, what would happen? According to the rules, of a self-carrying kid was having an emergency but lost their medication, the teacher would have to call 911. After calling 911, they would have a teacher look after the student while they go and call the parents to let them know. The teacher would also then call the administration to get them to come down and watch the situation and to let the first responders in. Once the student is in the first responder's care, then the administration will have to go with them to make sure there's always an adult supervision until the parent gets there.